Good morning, happy Monday, how are you? Well, I thought I'd talk today about getting overwhelmed because, it's that time of year again, isn't it? It's really funny, isn't it? Christmas is the same time every year, but every year it kind of sneaks up on us and we're suddenly like, oh, it's nearly Christmas. And then we get overwhelmed, don't we? Because we get overwhelmed because we have too much to do. So people get overwhelmed because they have all these presents to buy and they have the cards to write, and then they start thinking about food and all the things they have to do. But actually, especially now, years ago, you had to trawl around the shops for ages and there were hordes of people, and there was always the one thing that children wanted, the toy for that year. And the manufacturers, so I've read, always made less of that toy than was needed, so that the parents would then buy an alternative for their child, and then buy the thing the child really wanted after Christmas when it came back into the shops. Clever, huh? Not to say that we're ever manipulated, but you had to do that, and then you had to go to the shops for the food, and you had to queue. The queues, I remember once being in a queue that was so long that by the time you got to the cash desk, they had extra staff taking the frozen stuff from you, because by the time you'd been in the queue, it had almost melted, and they would go and get you some freshly frozen, and you could buy that. But of course, it's very different now, isn't it? Because we have online shopping for everything if we want. So people can buy presents online, they can buy food online, and yes, we still go to the shops, but it's not quite the same panic on the outside. But on the inside, people still have that same panic. They still have that same feeling of overwhelm. Is it because we want to buy exactly the right present? Yeah, that could be, and that's always a consideration. That's always nice, isn't it? But does it really matter? Does it have to take so much of your bandwidth that you're just totally overwhelmed with it? When one of my daughters was really young, she used to buy what she liked. So she would buy for you what she liked. So you'd get a bag of pick and mix with all the sweets that, well, there was definitely one person in the house that liked. And did that matter? No, of course it didn't. But we get overwhelmed, don't we, by the thinking about this pressure of thinking about Christmas and all that it entails. We have an idea, don't we, that Christmas should be like these cheesy Hallmark films. The ones, I actually quite like them, but the ones that come on every year and you know what's going to happen. You can plot the film through to the end. It's very cheesy and very nice. And there's always a lovely Christmas day. And we get to think that's how it should be. Or we look at the adverts where a whole family are sitting around the table and they're laughing and smiling and everything is lovely. And we think that's how Christmas should be. But let's think about it. How many people actually have those Christmases? When your children are young, if you're a parent and your children are young, it really is magical at Christmas, isn't it? But the magic still isn't coming from the day itself, is it? It's still coming from the way we are thinking about the day and the magic that we are creating because of the way we're thinking about it. And that's the same with the day every year. It's the way we think about it. Now, there's a lot of shoulds that overwhelm us at Christmas, aren't there? It's, well, should I be alone at Christmas? That's not right, is it? What's wrong with me that I'm on my own at Christmas? Or should I go and see my parents at Christmas? Or if you have divorced parents, if I go and see one parent, will the other parent feel neglected? Will they feel sad? If you're with a partner, shall I go and see my partner's parents at Christmas, or should I go and see mine? And we get into so much overwhelming thinking about where we should be, what we should do, who we should see, what Christmas should look like, what it means. And then of course we get into a lot of guilt, don't we? A guilt about the people that we can't see and the things we think we should do. And that really is overwhelming. But overwhelm can only come from the state of mind. So it comes from the way we are thinking about this one day. And I know there are the days around it, of course, but it seems to be that one day that really causes people the problems. I say the presents, the foods, the shoulds. Now, if you're religious, you're going to have a different state of mind, a different thinking about the day than your secular friends. That makes sense, doesn't it? But it doesn't seem to matter what your religion, what you're doing. Christmas still has this whole load of shoulds, this whole load of overwhelmed thinking. We really do start to worry as if something is going to happen this day that doesn't happen any other day. And the day still has 24 hours in it, doesn't it? Just the same as every other day. Or we start thinking about the things we have to do. We start thinking about them all the time. So you might wake up and you're thinking, all right, now I have to do this, now I have to do this. Maybe you're a fantastic list maker. Well, that's great for downloading. Just download all of the things you need to do so you can cross them off the list. But please do remember who wrote the list. And it's always you, isn't it? Now, if you're sitting on your sofa and you're thinking, right, I've got to do this, and 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 you're feeling really, really, really overwhelmed, well, firstly, we know that nothing ever gets done from a tense state of mind, does it? We never really accomplish any of the things we set out to accomplish because we're so frantic about the things that we think we should do. So what are you doing when you're sitting on your sofa? Well, you're sitting on your sofa thinking about the things that you need to do. So you can either get up and physically do something. So maybe if you can do something online, do it. Or if you need to think, right, okay, what do I need to do tomorrow? And you need to write your list, do it. But if you're sitting on the sofa thinking about all the things that you need to do, that's really exhausting and it's really overwhelming. So I need you to just bring yourself back. When you start to have that feeling of overwhelmed, and as I say, this is a really good time of year that everybody feels it. Just bring yourself back to what are you doing right now? Whether you do need to order your turkey if you eat meat, whether you do need to buy some more presents, whether you need to buy a ticket to get the hell out of here until the Christmas madness is finished. You can either do it or not do it. And thinking about doing it all the time isn't achieving anything except overwhelming you. Yeah. So if you think of the approaching Christmas day like the destination on a dark night. So you're driving on a dark night down a country lane and you can't see anything, can you? You can only see the few yards ahead of you. That's all you can see. That's all you can deal with. Again and again. Now you know your destination is over there. You know that it's coming, but you can't see it because you're not there yet. So that's what I want you to do. When you start to feel overwhelmed, think, oh, okay, all I need to deal with right now are the lights ahead of me. That's all I need to think about. What is coming up ahead of me? What is coming up ahead of me? What can I do now? And that will really bring you back to the now, and you can achieve so much more. So remember, when you feel overwhelmed, it's not coming from Christmas. It's not coming from the hordes of relatives that are going to descend. It's not coming from the lack of relatives that are going to descend. It's not coming from anything right now apart from your thinking about it. I had a friend who had the best Christmases when her children were young. What they used to do, it always sounded kind of strange to me, but she didn't have any family that she wanted to see. So her and her two children wouldn't get dressed all day. They would stay in their pajamas all day and they would have picnic food. So she would get all this picnic food and lay it out on the table like a buffet. And that's what they used to do. They used to watch old films, play games and eat picnic food all day. And she said it was the most great time. No stress, no worry, no overwhelm. And I had another friend who had got herself in such a terrible, terrible, terrible state planning the perfect Christmas day that she was exhausted, and by Christmas Eve she just came down with the worst flu ever. She could not move. She absolutely could not move. She felt so bad she just could not even get out of bed. So what the family did is they just cancelled Christmas Day. And I think the dad took the children out for lunch. She didn't want to eat, but they just left her something. And they set the TV up for her with the remote. And she just laid in bed and slept most of the day. She slept away Christmas. And she said it was one of the best Christmases she'd had. Now, she could have had that Christmas without all of the overwhelm before then, couldn't she? It's entirely up to us what we do and how we do it. So, just to remind you, when you start to get overwhelmed, when there's too much to do, and you know there's too much to do, and you know that you have all of these things, and you can feel your thinking speeding up, and you can feel yourself getting more and more tense and more stressed. Breathe. Right now. What are you doing right now? Because Christmas Day will come and it will go regardless of what you're doing and what you're thinking. So take your foot off the brake, let your thinking settle, and enjoy the run up to Christmas. And I'll see you next week. Okay, bye bye.